What's going on, everybody? This is Nick Lawson from Squad Sports. We're really excited to be supporting the Free Agent Friday series. A lot of great talent out there. Without further ado, this is the next free agent you should be signing with your sports team.
All right, we're back for another Free Agent Friday, and I am with Arvind Natt. How are you, Arvind?
I'm doing well, Andrew. Thanks for having me on the show. Glad to be here.
Appreciate that. I take it you're a big Kobe Bryant fan by the jerseys.
I am. Growing up, he was that guy to kind of model, I guess, your persistence or your personal journey after.
Yeah.
Ever since he passed, of course, rest in peace to Kobe Bryant. I decided to make sure the decorations were out and about so people could see how big of an effect he had on my life.
Yeah. Well, I love his work ethic.
Yeah.
It was awesome, and just it was good to see. It was definitely sad.
Oh, yeah.
So
I agree with the work ethic claim.
Yeah.
I think the big thing with him was like, how he had like the Mamba mentality.
Yeah.
It was just awesome to see him jump from one discipline to another. Like he was starting to do really well in the movie making business and some of his other ventures.
Everything he was doing, he was killing it.
I know, and I think that's something I want to take with me for the rest of my life. That he modeled his entire life around basketball,
Yep.
but he didn't stop once basketball was over. And I think that's an important thing that I can take from the way he lived his life, right?
Yeah, no, it's good. Let's talk more about your school, your college. Tell us where you went and kind of anything that you studied there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually went to Humber College here in Toronto, Canada. So I actually went twice to Humber. So my first was an undergraduate Bachelor of Commerce. It was business management, but I specialized in HR, so human resources. I worked for a couple of years before going back and doing a postgraduate certificate in sport business management.
What is kind of the ideal position that you're looking for now?
Yeah, so right now I really want to get involved with the community outreach. I know a lot of sport organizations, or even if they're privately owned, that they have like a charitable arm.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get involved with getting sport or activity and engaging the rest of the community with that. That's a type of position that I'm looking for.
That's great. I mean, sports are a great way to bring people together from all walks of life and backgrounds and everything. That's what I love about sports.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, God, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I think exactly what you said, like all backgrounds. I think most of the friends I made growing up were always, I'd randomly meet them in a park. We'd just start throwing a ball around or kicking around and stuff. And then those are the ones that like you kind of remember because whether you were on a team or you're competing against them for some reason, that just, for me, it always clicked in terms of fostering that relationship with them. So I really enjoy that aspect. And then just having like different neighborhoods, play different types of sports. So I've always just kind of embraced whatever was going on activity wise. And that's what's allowed me to reach out and meet new people.
What's your favorite sport?
Ooh, that's a great question. When I was younger, for sure, I mean, growing up in Toronto, I was a huge hockey fan. But with the expense of hockey, never really got to play. And growing up, I got to play like soccer. And then, so basketball is the first sport I think that I would say consumed my life, I would say, over anything as soon as I hit like post-teenager. So basketball was the first one. But in all honesty, my favorite sport to watch is definitely football. Definitely my favorite sport to analyze too. I like the X's and O's, and I think just the aspect of how much preparation goes into just one game, and then you get, a couple snaps if you're a player, and then a total of 11 minutes of actual action.
Right.
That's so awesome. Like it's one of the greatest things I think ever created in sport. Like I was actually in the shower one day, Andrew, and I was thinking in my head, like, what would the guy that created football had to have been doing to think that would be like a great sport? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
You snap the ball and these guys just collide at each other. Like, oh, that's, it's pretty
And a lot of strategy in there, which is crazy.
Oh, which is the awesome part. Like how much
Yeah.
preparation time, and that's like the important part of the game, right? The X's and O's and the strategy that's involved. And that's why I love the sport so much, because, you know, you can see strategy in quarter one and it's a very different strategy in quarter four. And I just like, you know, being able to pivot like that. I think it's a really great sport.
Canadian football or NFL?
Okay, we're only broadcasting this to the USA, right? Like, this is
we're on the World Wide Web. What do you mean?
All right. Well, I apologize to my fellow Canadians. Definitely NFL, though.
Really? Who's your team?
I'm a Packers fan. I'm a big Packers
Okay.
fan. When I was growing up, you couldn't not watch football and see one of those Wrangler jeans commercials of Brett Favre.
Yeah.
3 MVPs in a row. And
yeah, he's a beast.
He was a beast. And I don't know, I've never seen a guy's veins pop so much when throwing a football, actually, in my life. So Brett Favre was definitely the guy to carry the torch to make me a Packers fan.
What's kind of the dream job for you?
So dream job for me, you know, it's pivoted. I'll be honest with you. At first, coming into, actually, even when I was younger, I always wanted to just be the GM of a team. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to manage personnel, but I also wanted to manage kind of the culture that we put around the personnel that comes into a building. And the older I got, the more I studied, I realized I'd rather take an effect on that set on the ladder, the culture part. So I think for me, I saw a role actually posted at MLSE, and I pinned it, saved it, because that's something I'd want to do in my future. And it's a director. It's now moved to a senior vice president of culture and diversity.
Oh, nice.
So like for me, growing up, like culture and diversity was like a big thing for me, because I was usually the only brown guy on any team. And then eventually, as you know, the world got bigger, more immigration happened, everything expanded, so diverse now. But I want to make sure that I play a role in how we advocate and how we consider absolutely everybody to participate at an equitable level.
And I think, you know, in the last few years, more and more teams have kind of created that position, you know, to really make a difference. So yeah. I think that's great. What would you say is your biggest skill or asset that you'd bring to your new position?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, I'm really resourceful, I would say. So like, you know, I've had different roles, or even in my personal life, educational life, at times I've been given limited resources, and, you know, I've had to learn to take whatever that is given to me and make the most out of it. So whether that's, you know, having a tool or technology that had limitations and we were trying to meet a sales objective, I had to just figure out a way. And I think that's something that I really do bring to the table. And the one that actually helps me get over that, I'm sorry you asked for one, I'm going to give you two.
Fine.
And what gets me over that is my interpersonal skills. So, you know, in anything I've ever done, I've always had to like gather requirements or gather information. And being resourceful is using your network and using the people that are around you that have that type of intellect or have that knowledge base, and gaining insights from them and then being able to apply it. So if I had limitations within myself, I reach out to those that have that capability and make sure that I can learn from them and then in turn apply it myself.
That's great. How about on the flip side? What do you need to work on?
I wrote a couple down. So for myself, my digital acumen, I'll be honest, is probably not that of someone that's, you know, in their 20s that's been using social media for the last 10 years. So my social media accounts personally, I'm not one that posts a lot. But, you know, for someone that wants to be engaging with the community and want that outreach, I think it's important that I do share aspects of my life in order to garner that from others. I'm well aware of that. It's just, I guess I want to make sure I'm sharing the right things. And especially now with the pandemic, that's the only way I can keep in touch with people.
Yeah.
So that was a big learning lesson for me and something that I'm looking to apply day in and day out moving forward.
It could be such an asset if utilized properly. I mean, that's for sure. So I feel like a dinosaur compared to most of the people I work with because they're in their 20s. But it's an area I constantly am trying to learn as well and get better.
You have the hairline on me. So, I mean, I'm in my 20s. You still got the hair going. You should feel younger just after this.
41, man, 41.
Are you 41?
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Yep.
You do not, I'm sure your wife appreciates that you don't look 41. So,
Yeah. Well, they all say I look older, my kids, and they like to bust my chops, but that's all right.
Feel right?
Yeah. Hey, I feel good. In my mind, I'm in my 20s. So
That's the important part.
now when I go out and run or do something else, I feel like I'm in my 60s. So how would you define success?
How would I define success? Great question. For me, I would define success when I know that I can now use my accomplishments to help other people. So for me, it's great if I'm able to make a certain amount of money, or for me personally, able to impact a lot of lives through the help of an organization. But I want to have like either a skill set, or I want to have some sort of ability to take on exactly what you're doing, like have some sort of platform, have some experience where I can now go out into the community and personally try to engage them and see what I can do to offer and help them. So for me, success would be able to take my accomplishments that I've been able to collect, and then in turn help someone else reach that, and possibly even go beyond.
Kind of walk me through your resume a little bit. Did you have any internships during college, and then what happened after college? What kind of roles were you in?
Yeah. So when I was in undergrad, I took HR, and so post HR, I was actually so at that time going through school, I was a server. So that's what helped me put myself through school. And then so I was working as a server, and I had the opportunity to interview as a recruiter for an IT company. And this is back in 2017. And I go into the recruiter interview, and I was going to be in-house, like trying to find resources. And I'm talking to the interviewer, and he's like, you know what, Arvind, no, we want you to be business development. We want you to go on the BD side. We want you out in the world. And I said, okay, let's talk about it. So they introduced the role, and I took on the business development role. So that was the very first role I had out of school. And then from there, I did pivot onto a more in-house recruiting role at a marketing company. And then it wasn't until I had a conversation at that marketing company where I decided to pivot towards sport. So then I had, a ticket sales role at the Toronto Rock. And then I started working really in the not-for-profit and the community outreach space, where I'm working with KidSport Ontario, writing grants. And then I had an opportunity to be on the administrative side of grant writing, where I worked with Canadian Tire Jumpstart. So we were evaluating grants and really providing customer service to any beneficiaries that received funding support. And then now I actually just launched my own business to write some grants and help not-for-profits go out, request the ability to apply for funding, and then actually write the funding application for them so that they can execute the programs even during such a trying time like the pandemic, and of course sustain that for the future.
Nice. I know how difficult grant writing can be too. I've served on a bunch of nonprofits, and it's there's a lot of paperwork.
A lot of paperwork.
A lot of details. What any role you like the most out of what you've done?
For me personally, so actually one of my favorite stints, it was a small internship that I did last summer. And it was to consult with a podcast. So this podcast is currently called the Hockey Illuminati. It's hosted by a guy named Frank Karupi. He was looking for an intern to come on to help rebrand the podcast and then do any of the back end work so that he's ready on air to conduct his interviews. And the reason I love that role so much is he allowed me to wear any hat I wanted. So he gave me the opportunity to, he was jumping from a name called the Jock and Jill Show to now the Hockey Illuminati. So I worked with him to just take on the rebranding project. I told him, hey, listen, that really interests me as a consultant. I'd love to do that. So I went out, I hired our graphic designer. We put together his mission, vision, company values. Then we went ahead and started researching what type of interviews to do, social media campaigns, started doing work on like social media calendars for him, what kind of campaigns would be engaging, did some research on like podcast audience statistics on how people listen. Are they second screening? Where are they when they're listening? So that he can cater his content towards that. And then, of course, did all the bios and the research behind all the interviews he conducted. So that helped play a role in everything I do as a grant writer too, where I know research and how much I work in preparation really helps execute the job at an optimal ability.
We talked about that. How about something more like personal? Like, give us a personal fun fact.
First
I always like asking this because it's always cool just to get something different.
You know, so I was listening to the different interviews trying to prepare, and that was the one question where I was like, I have no idea.
Oh, come on, man.
No, I got some. So for me, there's two things I'll tell you. One is I was the youngest of 4 kids for immigrant parents that had 3 daughters and then a son. So for me, you know, and a lot of the time I joke about this with my buddies where I feel like the reason I got so in love with sport or became so in love with sports is just an overcompensation in the house. Like I didn't want to do all this stuff with the girls. And I was like, you know what, how can I really showcase I'm a man? And so everything I did was all about
opposite. Nice.
Just to make sure, you know, there was some good BO and some sweat in the house at all times,
right?
Like things like that.
It's got to smell like a locker room at least a little bit.
A little bit, right? Even at least when you're in my room, right? I need to get a sense.
Yeah, when you're in high school, it's got to be that way. I've got a high school son now.
I think there's a reason my mom went to Costco to buy all the Speed Stick and Old Spice. She kept that thing stocked because she knew she did not want the rest of the house smelling like a locker room, for sure. So like I definitely overcompensated as a guy, but then you know that played a large part into who I am today. My favorite vacations are actually like road tripping. I enjoy a road trip over anything else, and the reason why is we're in North America, and me and my buddy started this a couple years ago, where each summer we go down to the States for 4th of July and we check out new baseball stadiums each 4th of July.
Nice.
By far my favorite vacation to go on. And like, you know, I hope I marry a woman that's like, hey, we can do this as part of our honeymoon. Like that would be fantastic. Where
give her a questionnaire. If she doesn't check yes, then you just eliminated yourself.
I like that. Maybe on date 2.
Yeah.
The questionnaire out there.
How many ballparks have you been to, you think?
Around like 9 or 10 now. About
nice.
9 or 10. My favorite one, if I could give you that, is Wrigley Field. We caught 2 games that day. We saw the White Sox at 2:00. We saw the Cubbies at 7:00.
That's sweet. Yeah.
Oh, it was sweet. Never been in Wrigleyville or any place like that before in my life. So we walk out after the fireworks, and it was like a night to remember. We were getting back to the hotel at like 4:30 in the morning. An absolute blast. But Wrigley Field, just I guess the history behind Wrigley Field, but I think just I guess how crazy all the fans get.
Yeah, atmosphere is awesome.
Atmosphere is crazy. Like they were yelling at Addison Russell from our outfield. We're in the bleachers in the back row, and we're trying to get every single player on the Cubs to kind of say hello to us. And these guys got super rowdy, and then we got like Addison Russell to say hello. We tried to get Chris Bryant over in third base, but he was zoned in that day. I think he hit a grand slam. So.
Well, try to get to those other ballparks, man. It's a lot of fun to be as many as you can. And hopefully, you know, we can help get you some exposure. The last question is, are you open to relocating?
Absolutely. So actually, especially right before the pandemic, I had finished my last role at the end of 2019 on a contract. And I started looking at the market itself and where I could work. And I've 2 things to consider. I've never actually traveled by myself outside of, you know, just taking road trips. So I realized I have nothing else here that can really keep me here, so to speak. I am open to going to Australia, New Zealand. I will go to, South Alabama. I'm even considering a role that I saw with like 8,700 people. So community size doesn't matter to me. Place and geography doesn't matter to me. I'm someone that's looking forward to an experience where I go somewhere where I don't know anyone and I start building a network there. So open to anywhere and everywhere.
Great. That always helps open up options. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciate you joining me, and let's keep in touch. Let me know. I'm sure you're going to be back working soon.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Andrew. Thanks so much for having me again. I appreciate the exposure and everything you're doing for the rest of the industry. And I hope to keep in touch, and best of luck to you and the rest of the show.
Thank you.